Just let me make sure we're live. Yep, we're live.
Okay, great.
Always have to do a little housekeeping here. Hi, everybody. It's meteorologist Joe Cioffi, FiOS 1 News, Long Island, and FiOS 1 News, New Jersey.
And meteorologist Joe Rayo from... well, that wasn't Joe Rayo.
There's Joe Rayo.
There's Joe Rayo right here. FiOS 1 News, Lower Hudson Valley.
And we are especially thrilled because we have our first guest tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show, and that is Bill Goodman. Bill is a forecaster at the National Weather Service in Upton on Long Island, and one of my neighbors. How are you, Bill?
Yep, doing great tonight. Long day at work today, kind of getting our office ready for hurricane season and all.
Anything you'd like to share on that standpoint?
Well, I mean, there's a lot that we have to get in place, just software-wise, working with the Hurricane Center, and we do a lot of testing of stuff in the off season to make sure that that when we have to go live, that everything goes pretty seamless. And so far, so good. I work on some things that kind of help the forecasters get the job done quickly too. Do a lot of IT stuff when I'm not actually forecasting the weather.
We're going to talk about the tropics a little bit later on. Let's get into a little bit of the short range of what's going on right now, because it's starting to look. And Mr. Rayo, you made a point of this earlier. I've got the Northeast Regional Radar view up right now, which shows rain going up into upstate New York and into New England. But there are some bands of thunderstorms out to the west, and it looks like tomorrow morning, right around the start of the morning commute, it could get a bit dicey.
Yeah, I think so. We were looking at the HUR earlier, and it really takes that stuff right to the city right about daybreak.
All right, I'll bring up the HRRR now, and you're gonna disappear on the screen for a second. But I've got the latest HRRR model, and let me just roll it through here. And Joe, look at how it blossoms out these thunderstorms here tomorrow morning, right around 4 or 5 a.m. It really has some pretty good cells here. Bill, you were saying that SPC, the Storm Prediction Center, talked about this evening.
Yeah, I noticed they have a marginal risk for severe down in the mid-Atlantic, figuring a couple of those storms along the warm front could go severe, maybe even an isolated tornado. And the way that this whole thing's evolving, and with the convection, becoming, like with the instability becoming surface-based as we get into the second half of the night, and the low-level winds picking up, that that might be a concern here. I don't know about severe. I don't know about tornado. I don't like to go that route, but maybe something with like a rotating storm that managed to produce some strong winds. That could happen like late night, early morning.
Bill, can I ask a question?
Sure.
You're of course at the Weather Service office. It's so funny because a lot of people, when they hear New York City National Weather Service, they're thinking, I guess, still of Rockefeller Center, and of course you guys are no longer there. You've been out on the East End for about 20 years now, I think.
But, since 1993. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a while. You saw just what the HRRR is suggesting tomorrow morning, and the discussion about thunderstorms and whatnot. When does it get to the point where you guys over at the weather office say, hey, maybe we ought to put up some kind of a flash flood watch just to be on the safe side, a CYA type forecast, just to be safe, because it's the morning commute and there may be some. I mean, where I cover Lower Hudson Valley, virtually every roadway that's adjacent to a body of water floods out at the drop of a hat, and this tomorrow morning may be one of those occasions.
Yeah, I'm not too sure. I know one of the problems I've seen the model struggle with lately is the amount of rainfall they're spitting out. They really seem to be overdoing it, and I have I have a sneaking suspicion that even the HRR may be doing a little bit of that, may be getting a little bit too enthusiastic for the morning. Not to say we couldn't have heavy downpours. I just don't know if they're going to be as widespread as what it is showing.
Tomorrow afternoon, well, I don't know if we really want to call this a cold front. It's since actually the temperatures behind it are going to be hotter than ahead of it.
I called it a dry front.
It's more like a dry line, really, that's coming through. I wonder whether there might be some scattered convection with that when it comes through later in the afternoon.
That could happen. A lot depends on what happens in the morning. If things really are as widespread as this, I bet you the afternoon may not be as big of a deal. We may have if we get a lot of rain falling, it may take longer to heat things up. I've seen this happen where the morning is the big show and then not much happens later.
Oh, sometimes with these warm fronts, you get the it kind of robs the atmosphere of everything, essentially, so that by the time you get the next impulse to come along, it doesn't have a whole lot left for it to work on.
Yeah, I've seen that happen a number of times. I guess it all depends how widespread things are during the morning. Maybe how much sunshine we get in the afternoon. I mean, if we heat up well into the 80s, we're going to be, the soundings look pretty unstable to me. It's just a question of how much lift comes in with the cold front.
All right, so let's talk with this with this heat wave. I'm going to bring up I'm on Tropical Tidbits, Levi Cowan's amazing website. How did we live without it? I don't know. And kudos to him, by the way, tropicaltidbits.com. Okay, so I've got the GFS up, and we get rid of this, and you got this big ridge that's building into the east. So it looks like we're going to have a good 6 days, I would think, of 90 plus. We're on the same page with this.
Yeah, I think so, and the GFS is on board with it, and the European even more so. At work, we get to see a MOS, the model output statistics that come from the European model, and they're going even warmer and have one more day of 90-degree heat than the GFS, and when that might be something might be something that really does happen. I think a lot of times that last day of warm weather tends to be a little bit warmer than we think. So I could see it going. I could see one more day of 90-degree heat maybe going into late next week.
What really impresses me, Bill and Joe, is the fact that I've been watching the weather for a very long time, and I think the largest height value I've ever seen.
Well, let me bring it up. I'll bring up the upper air. So keep going.
Yeah, on the upper air, 500 millibar. I once saw here in the Northeast a height of 600, and I don't think I've ever seen that before. And this is a fairly formidable height. I think by Sunday we have heights of something like 594, 595. It really is pretty significant when you consider we've had mostly a fast flow and a kind of a flat flow for much of the spring into the early part of the summer. Now all of a sudden we've got this tremendous balloon, literally, that's inflating over our neck of the woods over the next 3 to 5 days. It's really incredible.
Yeah, and so it looks like it's going to go through at least to Wednesday, maybe even into Thursday.
Sunday, I would think would be the hottest day of this stretch, because after that the upper ridge just kind of starts to flatten out, and my big question for Monday, and it's been in my mind for days now, is are we going to go, at least for Long Island anyway, and maybe for coastal Connecticut, perhaps the immediate Jersey coast, that we go to a south wind, and that might hold the temperatures back a degree or two. The inland areas will still make 90, 91, 92. I don't think they're going to make 95, 6, or 7 on Monday.
Yeah, that may happen. I know we had something like that happen. Was it last Monday or two? The last time we were warm, the winds really picked up during the day on Monday. We didn't get nearly as warm as
right.
It did.
The long-range progs leading up to that last heat event were all suggesting like mid to upper 90s, but then when we got within a stone's throw, within a couple of 3 days, all of a sudden the models were saying, hey, it's not going to be as hot. It's going to be more like mid-90s, low 90s, or near 90 because, again, of the influx of onshore flow. It still got hot, but it wasn't the blistering heat that had been suggested, several days earlier.
Yeah, the only difference I can really see is that the core of the ridge is right on top of us on Monday. I don't know if that's going to help shut down the wind or not. It's a slightly different situation from the last time. or maybe the South Shore will get the south wind and not warm up. North Shore might warm up as much as
yeah.
as the
And I don't really see any pop-ups for Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. I mean, maybe Monday afternoon. You could wind, if there's like maybe some kind of sea breeze front that develops, and you wind up with some pop-up thunderstorms that way, and then maybe a better chance as we go into Tuesday and Wednesday. Bill, I put up the upper air for the North Atlantic so we can see what's going on, and we were talking, you and I, about the tropics going forward. We've been so kind of programmed to watch the Cape Verdes, and yet given the water temperature profile right now, there's a lot of speculation regarding the cold water that's coming down from the North Atlantic, bleeding southward along Western Europe, down off the African coast, and you've got this rather large belt of below average temperatures in the tropical Atlantic. But you and I were talking about the fact that this could mean, if that holds, maybe this is going to be something where the subtropics further north, where water temperatures are a little bit above average, might wind up being the main producer of activity.
That could be, or you just have a series of weak tropical waves that don't do much as they cross the Atlantic, and they wait till they get to the Gulf of Mexico or off the southeast coast. We end up with more in the way of homebrew type systems that develop pretty close in.
The European does it. The GFS does it next week. It kind of splits the ridge early next week in the Atlantic, and it has what looks like a weak upper low of some kind out somewhere southeast of Bermuda. That the models seem to then kind of try to bring it back west or west southwest as we go through next week. I mean, this would be the kind of example of something that would be homegrown, but. My experience thinking back, in the 80s and 70s when we used to see more of these types of systems, it's a long process. You go from cold core to warm core.
Yeah, exactly. When these lows pinch off from the westerlies, they have to get over the warm ocean waters, lose any wind shear, get a warm core, as you say, before you really get any tropical development. And yeah, it's not unheard of. The very first thing I always think of, I think there was a tropical storm Brett sometime in the early 80s that did that, sneaked underneath an upper ridge and went into, I think, Virginia.
I just put up a full screen shot of that the water temperature map, and Joe and I have put this up before. It looks like the area that's in the tropical Atlantic in terms of the cooler water has kind of shrunk a little bit, and my take on all of this is the fact that it's all fine and dandy to see this now. We don't know that water temperature profile is going to be this way come late July and August, when the Cape Verde season usually revs up.
Yeah, that's right. We got another month to go before we really get into the heart of that season. When we get to late July, early August, so we could make up some lost ground there.
What's your theory of? What's your idea? The waters that are north of 40, going all the way up to Greenland and then westward toward England, such a large area of really much below, not just below average, but in some places 3 and 4 degrees Celsius below average. What do you think is causing that? I noticed, by the way, that this all seemed to have started back late in February when we had that big the split in the vortex of the stratosphere, and at that point the water temperatures were kind of close to average. But ever since then, there's been this kind of slow bleeding of colder water. Where is that coming from?
Good question, Joe. You've been paying attention to that more than I have. I've kind of got my eyes focused on what's going here locally. I mean, in the long term, I would think that could be snow, snow melt from. Is
it glacier melt? Is it glacier melt from Greenland with the fresh water going in and the decreased salinity and everything that goes along with it?
I mean, that could be over the long term, that could be a problem where that kind of thing. There's theories that could shut off the Gulf Stream and make Europe really cold compared.
And some, by the way, have argued that shut off of the Gulf Stream has already occurred. I've seen a few technical papers where they've actually, a few people have brought that front and center.
That could be. That's getting a little bit outside my area of expertise.
No, but it's outside my pay grade too. I totally get that.
But also, we've gotten word over the last few days that there was still snow falling in parts of Newfoundland. I mean, snow, and that seems to be almost embedded in that zone of below normal water temperature. So it's and I've also seen papers too about how regardless of how hot or how above normal much of North America will be, that eastern Canada, maybe bleeding on down to parts of New England, are expected to be perhaps during this summer season near or below normal. Maybe it has something to do with that unusual fetch of colder water coming down from the north. I'm not sure.
Well, I think even the overall pattern, before we got really warm, we just had these series of highs that kept coming down. We have all these backdoor cold frontal passages, and we'd get a couple days would be warm, and then it would go back to, something on the cooler side, and they just happen to be, they're more in the thick of it than we are. We're sort of on the southern edge of that compared to places like Newfoundland. So, it could be that, and I guess a lot of times, if I don't know what kind of snowfall they had during the winter, I don't know if that kind of influences it, but
they didn't have as many of the, up until the nor'easters, and I'm not sure if how much impact that they got from those. I don't know that their snowfall was especially above average. Sometimes I get some folks from Newfoundland on my YouTube channel on some days, and I don't recall any of the storms that we got being standouts for them.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know what seemed like our sea surface temperatures were below normal for quite a ways into the month of May, and even into June, seeing upper 50s pretty late into the season. I got friends on the Jersey Shore complaining to me, when's the warm water going to get there? Once
we go through this heat wave pattern, what do you think about after that? Do we go back to this June pattern we had, where you've got basically a trough in the east and more of a ridge in the west, and we get these deliveries? It seems like the GFS and the long range and a few other of the longer range models are showing this idea as we kind of start to move into the middle part of July.
Yeah, it was looking like that. Once we get done with this heat, the ridge shifts to the west. We get into like a northwest flow aloft, frontal passages. Maybe that's opportunities for severe weather, depending on the strength of these frontal systems and any surges of warmth or moisture that can shoot up ahead of them. We'll have to wait and see on that part.
Bill, do you ever, or the guys over and gals also at the Weather Service, do you ever look at some of the long-range progs from, let's say, the Climate Prediction Center, where they forecast what may be happening 6 to 10 or 8 to 14 days out, or sometimes even their new experimental prog, which gives probabilities now to 3 to 4 weeks out? Do you ever take a look at that and have that in the back of your mind when you're doing a short-term forecast?
On occasion, yeah. If that has any impact in the shorter term, yeah, I will. Seems like lately I haven't worked too many long-term forecast shifts. My focus has really been on like the first couple of days. So when Joe called me up and said, "Hey, let's chat," I really had to spin up on the long range, and I knew I knew we had the heat, but beyond that, that's almost like that kind of thing with the ridge going back to the west and the trough in the east. That's something. If it didn't happen then, it would probably happen more like midsummer, July, August. So that's kind of going where where what we call climatology. That's typical for the as we get in the midsummer, but that's a little bit early.
Let's switch topics. Joe and I are no strangers to shameless self-promotion. So you have the floor. Bill and I share one among many things in common. Our criminal dress sense for one. But seriously, I'm a tenor, or I haven't been able to do a choir for the last couple of years because of my schedule. But I was a tenor in my local church choir for 20 years, and you are in the neighboring church in my neighborhood. I'm at St. Elizabeth's. You're at St. Margaret of Scotland. But you've got a band. You have got a band, sir, and we want to hear about it.
Oh, all right. Well, a little shameless self-promotion. Yeah, it's funny when you go on the Craigslist and answer an ad, look for somebody looking for musicians. What can happen? I really managed to get lucky. Found a band with a great bunch of guys, great personalities, and the music is just fun. The name of the band is the Mondays, and we're actually doing the finishing touches of a record right now that we're going to release sometime in the summer.
Awesome.
Really?
And you
Wow.
you have done appearances on Long Island, for which I am waiting for an invitation. For
All right, well, come on out to Montauk Point on
oh no,
July 8th.
look, I got to tell you right now, if you're talking about going out to Montauk now at this time of year, I do not do 5-hour drives. Okay,
Oh,
on one-lane roads at 20 miles an hour. I'm not doing it. When are you going to be closer to me, to us?
Closer? I'm trying to think. Right now, we're just trying to finish this record, so we haven't done as much this summer as we
All
had.
right. But when you get in the
previously.
fall, though, I'm sorry, you were saying you're going to be at Montauk when?
That's going to be on Sunday, July 8th. There's the town of Montauk, but there's actually, I guess, like a visitor center right out by the lighthouse that's looking to have music, and they called us up and asked if we wanted to do an afternoon appearance there. So, it won't be the whole thing, kind of like a scaled down version of what we normally do. So people will actually want to come in to this. Come in and not not feel like their ears are bleeding or anything like that. Like we do for a more like a bigger performance.
Well, when you're a little bit closer to our geography, where you and I are, relatively speaking, I just don't like to drive to the South Fork in the summertime is torture. I mean, because the traffic is just very, very difficult, and I'd rather do it. I'll do it in the late fall and the winter time, but let me know when you're in somewhere in central or western Suffolk or in Nassau County, and I'll try my best to be there.
We'll do. We'll do impromptu appearances. I know last year I just happened to go online just looking to book the band for a show, and I came up with I guess the Family Fest that they have in Belmore every September. We got on the bill there really late. Did shows 2 days in a row. Had a lot of fun. So it who knows, once the record's out, and then we start promoting and getting out. Maybe we'll even be on the radio somewhere.
Do you play an instrument?
I used to play the violin.
Really?
Back in junior high school, I was a first violinist. But don't ask me to play a violin because I haven't picked one up in more years than I care to remember. In fact, I was a former acquaintance of yours was right next to me in my violin, the orchestra.
Who?
Jeanette Graff.
Really? Oh my God! There's a name from the past.
And she was like a virtuoso violinist.
Yes,
she was amazing on the violin.
Yes, I remember it.
Yeah.
All right, so Bill, thank you so much for being here with us. I really, really appreciate it. I know it was kind of last minute, but you and I are, we hang out at Starbucks every once in a while, so I felt that we were close enough that I could say, hey, Bill, come on the Joe and Joe Weather Show. And you were always welcome here, okay? So anytime you have to do any kind of shameless self-promotions, just let me know. Our door is open for you.
Will do, and we'll move the morning coffee from Starbucks to the pool now that you're getting that ready too.
I actually was able to get it. I got everything clean and working. Last year I had so much trouble with algae. I literally must have had it swimmable for about 48 hours before it just took over again. But I seem to have everything under control this year, so it's ready to go. I will be in it this weekend. And you are, of course, always welcome at my house.
Thumbs up. Thanks. I'll bring the coffee. You provide the water. That's all.
All right, pal. Go ahead.
One thing. You just lost. Let's say the wrong word is lost, but Jeff Tung, who was your science officer for many, many years, just retired from the Weather Service office. Correct?
Yes, that's right. He did, and Gary Connie, our former warning coordination meteorologist. So we lost two big people from our office in a short span.
I bring up Jeff because he went to school with my wife, who was also a meteorologist, I'm wondering whether or not, even in retirement, do you think he might be interested in coming on and talking for a little bit, or?
Oh, I think so. I think he'd love the opportunity. We're all big weather nuts, and we I guess our story of walking uphill in the snow 5 miles both ways is that we only had weather radio to listen to back then. So there's a lot of
exactly.
A lot of fascinating stories. As a matter of fact, I mean, the one big thing was hearing you, Joe, on volunteering for the Weather Service during the blizzard of '78. This is all your fault that I'm here right now.
That's well, I have that tape somewhere stored in my computer. The problem is now that I'm almost 60, I don't remember what file name I gave it, so I have to I have to go on this basically like I'm hunting for bear. It's going to be.
Meanwhile, I have about 300 cassette tapes. And on one of those is his voice during that amazing forecast. So one of us will get a hold of that.
No, I have it some. I have it. Also, it's been given to me on Facebook a few times, so I just have to find it. It's there.
I have it too. I play it in the office every once in a while. Remind people of the good old days. That's things have changed so much since then. It's we've gone from these surprise snowstorms. Going to bed thinking it's going to rain, wake up to 12 inches of rain, and now it seems like we're almost on the other end now, where we're starting to get a little bit, get a little bit too generous with some storms.
These last 18 years have been just, to me, they've basically just been the absolute polar opposite. Excuse the pun, but absolute polar opposite to the period from 1970 to 2000. It's as if that 30-year period was at the very bottom of the long-range statistical, if you plot snowfall over the long range, those 3 decades were the 3 least snowiest decades on record, starting with the 70s, then the 80s became the least snowiest, and then the 90s became the least snowiest. And now you've got the absolute opposite. You got average snowfall of 20 inches a year versus the long-term average of 30, and in the last 18 years, our average is up, especially on Long Island, up into the low 40s. So, it's almost like we're just making up for the deficit of the prior 30.
Oh, it's just incredible. Every year it seems like we get a blizzard and a foot plus snowstorm. I've been here 15 years. I'm still trying to get used to it compared to what I remember as a kid.
I live in Putnam Valley, Bill, and every year it's the same thing. I always say to myself, well, this winter can't be any worse than last winter, and the winter ends, and
now he has to see me, and I come in my drive from Long Island, and it's like, you won again, didn't you?
It's amazing.
Well,
yeah, it really is.
We got to go, so thank you so much again for being here, and we're definitely going to have you back again, okay?
Oh, thanks really for the invite. This is a nice surprise. You gave me a call, and I was on my way home from work. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll spin up quick. Let's do this. Let's have some fun.
And just, by the way, just really fast, and I've said this a number of times before in other venues. Once upon a time, it was kind of like an us against them attitude with respect to media and the Weather Service. And I'm going way back now, 70s into the early 80s. I have to tell you 2 things. You guys are great. You do an absolutely spectacular job. You really do.
Thank you.
And what's really I find the level of cooperation between
media
and government now is just so from the standpoint from the weather standpoint, it is it's an excellent relationship, and I think you guys do a fantastic job. And the other thing is just in terms of the Weather Service in general, being that I do have some audience that is in Europe and in England and in Ireland, including the Queen. She watches this show religiously.
Does she dress for it? That's what I want to know.
Right. But anyway, one of the things that I get from a lot of the folks there is that their weather websites do not provide anything close to the level of information that is available on weather.gov, and that is, and I say this all the time, from the standpoint of what is available information-wise, the U.S. weather, the Weather Service, weather.gov, and everything that goes with it, including all the other sites and the satellites and everything else, blows all the other services away.
Oh, well, thank you. That's I can take no credit for that. That's just a lot of talented people with with a lot of great skills with web design and trying to standardize things. So if you're viewing a different office, that you can find the same information in the same place, trying to make it easier for folks. And and as far as our partnership between the us and the broadcast media, we're all trying to get the same message across. So it's about time. It's about time we all got on the same page. We do things like this. I was up in Connecticut doing a damage survey after the May 15th severe weather, and I had some folks from the news media come along with me and watch how we try to figure things out, and that's want to try to keep cementing those relationships, keep moving forward with them. That's the future.
Well, we appreciate everything you guys do. Thank you so much, and we'll talk to you soon. Okay.
All right. Thanks for having me on.
If you've got something you want to share, put your band info on the in the comment section here on this live stream, and anytime you have anything to share, let us know and we'll get you on. Okay.
I got a better name for your group, Bill. Bill Goodman and the Weathermen.
That's actually taken. We got one of the guys, the office, Tim Moran. He plays guitar with his wife, and they call themselves Joy and the Weatherman. So
nice.
that's already taken in the office. I can't claim that one. I'm a latecomer. I go along. We call ourselves the Mondays. I think in the band's lore they wanted to call themselves the Sundays, and even that was taken. So
Right.
First day of the work week, need something to lift your spirits. So I guess that's what we're supposed to do.
All right, pal. Have a great night, and I'll talk to you later.
All right. Have a good one. Thanks.
Good night.
Nighty-night.
That was Bill Goodman from the National Weather Service in Upton, New York. And I've known Bill for a number of years. We actually talked for a long time before we met.
Really?
Yeah. And we live basically a mile apart. So
no, I shouldn't say that, because Ken Rhodes, Ken Rosato, I should say. I knew him as Ken Rhodes. I did WBLI out in Patchogue for a good number of years, and he was the news director there. And after 30 some odd years of going back and forth, we finally met at a function in Yonkers a couple of years ago. And it was so funny. I said, "This is the first time two of us ever met face to face."
Yeah.
So it goes that way.
It happens. All right. So I hope everybody enjoyed it. Thanks for being here tonight. Joe and I will be back tomorrow. Right? You're not off tomorrow.
No, I'm not off. I'm here.
Tomorrow's Thursday.
Tomorrow's only Thursday.
All right. I was thinking that Friday, because Friday's pizza day.
Yes.
All right. So I'll be on coming up at the top of the hour, FiOS 1 News Long Island and FiOS 1 News New Jersey. So be sure to tune in.
And FiOS 1 News Lower Hudson Valley, and we'll tell you just how hot it's going to get in the valley in the coming days ahead.
Jeff Banson will be on Long Island, New Jersey, and Hudson Valley tomorrow morning to get you started on your morning commute, which I think you should give yourself a little bit of extra time with some of those heavy downpours and maybe a thunderstorm that we might get.
Right. And Brittany Borer and Addison Green will be on in the midday, and then you and I will come shuffling in around 2 o'clock and take over for the rest of the afternoon and into the night with our show here. All
right. Have a great evening, everybody. Thanks again for being here, and hopefully we'll be getting more guests on, of all sorts. So we'll see what we can come up with. Have a great evening. We'll see you tomorrow.
See you later.
Au reservoir.
Au reservoir.